As with a good video editor, a good map maker is nearly invisible. They've done their job when you don't think about them at all, and they've failed when you start to think about the map of the game you're playing. Designing a map is closer to designing the experience of the player than most other game development activities. That's not to say that movement, jumping, running, mantling, the way the gunplay feels, the way the story comes together, certainly all of that is important, equally important even, but the way we traverse these worlds is through their maps. The difference between a very competent but ultimately boring game and one of the best experiences of all time is almost universally the map design. Ubisoft released Tom Clancy's The Division as a humble monthly bundle title, and while I had avoided it previously since clearly Borderlands was the superior looter-shooter, I decided to give it a try, and I loved it. I ended up putting in nearly full work week hours into this nearly dead game, and it was fantastic. And when The Division 2 was announced, I was quick to pull the entire Crime War community into ordering it. We started a clan and quickly hit the endgame content. This is the part where you're supposed to spend most of your time, and instead what happened was, we all quit. We'd spent hundreds of hours playing The Division 1 in a worse state than its sequel, and yet we were, and still are, so nostalgic about the glory days of The Division 1. After many months, I realized why The Division 2 sucks, and it's the map and mission design. Each mission in The Division 2 is designed to be taken and reinserted into other missions with different bad guys, leaving the location itself feeling as though it has no character. We remember the power plant and Amherst apartment because they were so unique, even though they were completely linear. Even the blandest missions are memorable in some way, whereas in the sequel, the missions come across as forgettable backdrops to interchangeable bad guys. It's not even that the levels are somehow ugly, because they're not. And they take place in interesting locations. However, the maps are just not particularly interesting, and that's why the one mission everyone remembers from TD2 is the one that is the most linear and has the most vocal bad guy.
Friend of yours gave me a real nice wristwatch.
The memorability of that mission is further strengthened when you visit it later, and it's still the exact same mission, just quieter. So you end up repeating the lines from earlier to yourselves.
It's the Division!
In this sequel, you remember the maps more because of the voice lines associated with them, or because they represent real places and you're amazed how closely they modeled it to the real place, instead of for the actual gameplay map design. I don't remember any of the objectives from The Division 2, but I remember exactly how to play Amherst Apartment on Legendary. That's not because the world isn't vibrant, it's more alive than the first one, and it's not that the guns suck or the gear sucks, because it's actually pretty average. It's the actual map design itself. By having such bland maps, The Division 2 has a more vibrant world with more to do in it, and less reason to do any of it. The best missions are the mini side missions, and you can only play those once, but they are memorable, scripted, and unique. Certainly, it's not all about having big set pieces that are played out the same for everyone, and multiplayer games do come into it. Dust 2 from Counter-Strike is arguably the best multiplayer map ever designed, and it's codified the Clover PvP map design. 2 teams start on opposite leaves with 2 objectives, 1 on each remaining leaf. A basic design principle that today is the founding step behind just about every first-person shooter map. It's just that good. However, single player is really where it shines. The map design can completely change the feeling of a game. Half-Life 2 starts as a chase sequence, followed by a fun romp through the Everglades, and somewhere around the middle, suddenly and drastically shifts into a horror game, being hunted by zombies in a macabre gorefest as a mad cultist priest shouts off in the distance. What an incredible shift in tone. The weapons stay the same, the movement stays the same, the enemies are barely variated, but the map turns this from happy-go-lucky to scary enough that there are players who never got past it. And it doesn't even have to be that drastic of a change. A game like the Stanley Parable is essentially, well, just a few rooms for most of the game. You are constantly retracing your steps, and it's the tiniest variations, or even the complete lack of variation, that drives you to continue in what would otherwise potentially be a rather boring experience. And yet, it is one of the most well-crafted experiences in gaming today, with incredibly funny high points and very emotional low points. These small experiences, encapsulated in the design of the map, completely shift how we remember the game we played. I don't remember much about BioShock specifically. There's a few key moments here and there, and when I see a screenshot of BioShock, I know it's BioShock. And when I hear Andrew Ryan's monologue, I know it's BioShock, but I couldn't really sit down and plot out the map. If you asked me how to get from point A to point B, I could not tell you. And yet, the single greatest moment of that game for me is the first fight with the Big Daddy. That room, I can plot that out. I remember its claustrophobia. If that same fight had been more vertical, or had more space to move, or had a bunch of obstacles that would impede the Big Daddy in some way, it would have been a lot less memorable. A lot less memorable. Instead, it's on my mental wall as one of my favorite moments in all of gaming. It was just that good of a fight. Afterwards, you grow in power so substantially that a single Big Daddy doesn't really give you that much trouble, and the map design opens up so that you can start planning where you'll engage these enemies more. It's easier to turn a Big Daddy fight into a winnable resource gathering trip, but you can't do that with the first one. It's set up in exactly the way it's supposed to be played, and you have a hard fight to win. But when you do, it's very worth it. On the other hand, maybe there's no one specific level that you clearly remember, but instead it's the overall feeling. The feeling of trailing a guard down a darkened street, or shooting a water arrow at the torch inside of a dining room so that you can snatch the valuable paintings on the wall, or even the sudden shocking realization that there are zombies here. Or maybe it's the inherent realization that you must be getting more skillful because every single fight you've had is the most intense fight of the game. Every single arena you step into is the last one ratcheted up one extra notch. Or maybe it's the fact that even though this is an open world with no multiplayer or crazy antics, and yet when you think back to it, you realize its world felt better and more real, that you remember the missions and the districts, and it all felt somehow greater than the newer one. I can't help but want to call attention to the fact that one of the most famous, most played, most copied levels of all time is essentially just a single, straight hallway. And yet, it is memorable and completely unique. I'm pleased I was able to put this video together for you. So many of you have been enjoying our content and sharing it everywhere. Would you consider sharing this on Reddit or Twitter? Because it really helps us out, but you are free not to. If you'd like, you can watch another video in the corner right now. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.